Good morning, everybody at home and in the room. We're starting our final service with this theme of widening the circle. And today, the theme is everybody in. Everybody in is the message. Our service today with Lindsay Dunckel is rooted in stories.
Hey, Kevin, someone's at the door. Should we let them in?
I think we probably should. Would someone be willing to check the door?
Hi, I was out in the parking lot I was out in the parking lot because I couldn't get in. I didn't have a reservation, so I was watching you on my phone. My name's Terry, and I have the perfect song for everybody in. It's a song by Peter Mayer.
Oh, Terry, thank you.
And you mind?
No, please.
Okay.
Please.
Well, it goes something like this. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle. Jesus Christ treated them great circle of love, till his followers asked him then, who should be included? Jesus said, everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in, to the circle, circle. Oligarchs and pirates try to keep some in, everybody else outside. Till the revolution sweeps across it, the people stand and the common folk cry. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in, the circle, circle. In the 20th century, there was a circle made only of men. Little Susie and me said, what about me? Let me in. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in. Circle, circle. Still the circle was a privileged thing, excluding people for the color of their skin. Till Martin Luther King said, let freedom in, let me in. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in. Circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in. Circle, circle. Gay and straight, rich and poor, the old and broken. Open up that door. The more we are, the greater we become. 'Cause after all, we are one. Bring in the people, but don't stop there. Bring the fish, the birds in the air. Bring in the rivers wide and mountains tall. We go together or not at all. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, everybody, everybody in to the circle, circle. One more time. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle. How about that?
Peter, thank you. Terry, thank you. I'm seeing Peter on the
Kevin.
screen. Peter,
Is there room for me?
there is room. He's right there, in fact.
Good morning.
How did Peter Mayer put it in that infectiously uplifting song? Gay and straight, rich and poor, whole and broken, open up that door. We are all welcome here. Musician at the back door, open up that door. We are all welcome here. In person, on Zoom, we are all welcome here. I am Lindsay Dunckel, and I am serving as worship associate for this morning's service, and I am so glad to be here with you. Our coming together makes this a holy place, makes this a holy time. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains in Grass Valley, California. When people think of church, they often think of Jesus. He made an appearance in that song we just heard. Did you catch that? Now, around here, we don't talk of Jesus all that often. Some people in this room probably learned a lot about Jesus growing up, and some of you, especially if the children among us who are growing up at UUCM, may have heard very little about him. The Bible tells us that Jesus was a storyteller. He used stories to grab people's interest, as stories always do. He used stories to make people think. He used stories to help them puzzle out what it means to be human. The stories that he told are called parables. They're short stories that are used to provide a lesson about spirituality or morality or principles. Of course, Jesus was not the only person who used stories this way. Stories make up a part of almost every religion. There are origin stories about how the world began. There are trickster stories. There are flood stories, and lots of other stories found in cultures all around the world. Come to think of it, right here at UUCM, most Sunday mornings, we tell a story. And that is probably because stories have power. Our brains are primed to make sense of things by looking for the story. Stories are how we think. Psychologists have all kinds of fancy words for this, like schemas and scripts and mental models and cognitive maps, but really they all mean stories. And stories light up our imaginations. They prompt us to use the right half of our brain as we listen, to tap into our creativity and step into someone else's shoes. This helps us to become more empathetic. In fact, studies show that people who read fiction, which is stories, are more empathetic. What I'm saying is stories are magic. They teach us about the world, its people and cultures. They help us make sense of ourselves and of the world around us and our place in it. They connect us to one another across generations and cultures and religions. Let's hear some stories. Everybody in?
Yeah.
Everybody, everybody in, everybody in, circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in, to the circle, circle.
This is The Many Hoops That Made One Circle by Black Elk Oglala Sioux. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about me, beneath me, was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw, for I was seeing in this sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes, as they must live together like one being. And I saw the sacred hoop of my people was one of the many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy.
Thank you, Matthew's family. And we have a slide that is an interpretation that our own Jesse Whiteman, who is one of the young people growing up in this community, made of the mighty tree. That is his drawing of that. I invite you, those of you listening at home, to light your chalice at home now. Nora Wiley is going to come up and do our land acknowledgement. Usually we have a basket of black oak acorns on the altar already. This morning, you may have all found an acorn on your chair, and we're going to come around and collect those.
Everybody, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, everybody, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody into the circle, circle.
In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people that are still here among us today, though are nearly invisible, and their story continues to be excluded from history. We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in the Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
Lindsay, you said you wanted stories today, right? And you wanted stories that had a moral, something that you remember, that you can carry on with you. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you some chances when I tell you this story. I want to see if at the end of my story, you know what the moral is. There's always a test at the end, isn't there? So this story's about Jesus, and it's told by the gospel writer Luke. And it's interesting to know about the person that writes the story, isn't it? And Luke happened to be a doctor, a physician. So it makes sense to me that what Luke cared about was taking care of people. That's something I care about too, isn't it? So here's your story. We call it the Good Samaritan. One day, a lawyer came to Jesus And he asked, what do I need to do in order to live forever, or to get to heaven, or to be enlightened, to have a great life and look forward to only good things? So Jesus asked him about the law of those times, in those Christian times, called the Ten Commandments. And he said, which of those laws of the Ten Commandments do you think is important? And the lawyer said, you shall love God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Said Jesus. And the lawyer said, but Jesus, who's my neighbor? Good question, right? Who's your neighbor? In other words, who are you asking me to treat lovingly? And so this is a story that Jesus told the lawyer that would let him know who he needed to treat lovingly. So once upon a time there was a man, and he was walking on a lonely stretch of desert road between the two towns of Jerusalem and Jericho. All of a sudden, there was a gang of thieves, and they jumped out from the side of the road, and they surrounded the man, and they said, "Give me your money." But he said, "Wait, I need my money. I have to buy food with this money. I have to buy food for my family, for my whole family." But, one of the thieves, he picked up a rock on the side of the road. Whew. And he hit the man in the head. And the man fell to the ground. And he was bleeding. And seeing nobody around, the thieves jumped on him, and they took all of his money. They even took his clothes off of him. And then one of those thieves picked up a stick, and he started beating on him. And he hit him a bunch of times. And then they ran away, and they left him on the side of the road. Can you imagine how awful he must have felt? So after a while, a man that they called a priest, a holy man, all dressed up in his garb, he came by. He looked over there, and he saw the guy laying on there bleeding and groaning on the side of the road. And what do you think he did? I'm sorry to say that he crossed to the other side of the road. And then he hurried on as fast as he could so he didn't have to look at him. But soon another man came along, and this man was from a tribe called the Levites, and he came, and he saw the wounded man lying on the side of the road, and he saw that the sun was hot, and he saw that the man was naked, and he saw that the man was bleeding. And what do you think he did? Not what we hope. He just ran along the road as fast as he could, so he didn't have to look at the guy anymore. So time passed, it was hot. And there were flies buzzing around the head of the man who was dying from his injuries. But luckily, here came somebody else along the road. I'm really glad. I hope something better happens this time. This was a Samaritan, another tribe, like Indian tribes. Now, the people of Samaria weren't very friendly with the tribe that this man on the ground was. In fact, they were sworn enemies of each other. But do you know what happened? Well, he didn't even think about it. He didn't think about whether he should help him, or where he was from, or what he looked like, how long his hair was, what a mess he was. He just saw that he needed help, and he had compassion. So this is what compassion was for this Samaritan. He took some oil and some wine from his bag. They didn't have water to carry. And he cleaned the man's wounds up. And then he tore apart his own shirt. And he used part of it to wash him and another part to bind him up so that the bleeding would stop. And then he took off his own robe and he covered the naked man with his own robe. And he gave him the little bit of water that he carried across the desert, and he let him drink it. And then he took him and he put him on his donkey, because the man was hurt way too much to be able to walk. And the man was in great pain, but they walked slowly, and he walked and led the donkey and left the young man on his back of the donkey to ride. And pretty soon, luckily, they found an inn, like a motel, or a person's house, a place where you could stay the night. And he brought the man in, and he told the man who ran it, take care of this guy. I want you to give him the best of care, and I'll give you this money so that you have the money that you need to give him food and clothes and take care of him. And the Samaritan left. But he promised that he'd come back in a few days, just in case there were more bills. He didn't want to leave this man with bills that he needed to pay, and anything else that was needed to bring this man back to health. So here comes the test. When Jesus finished telling his story, he said to the lawyer, "Which one of these 3 men acted like a neighbor to the man who fell among thieves?" And the lawyer said, "The one who showed kindness." What do you think? Yeah. Yes, said Jesus. Go and do the same.
Everybody, everybody, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody into the circle, circle. One more time. Everybody in, everybody in, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle.
Karen, thank you for the story. Each week at this time in the service, we ask ourselves that kind of question. Who's hurting? Who is hurting? And who might we pay attention to? So I ask that again today for each of us to think about. Who do we know who's been harmed, who's aching, who has a wound, who's hurting in some way? We also think about the people who have something very wonderful going on in their life too. Who do you know who's feeling really happy right now or had something really good happen for them? So as we're thinking about who's hurting and who's feeling super happy, we take time to remember that and think about what we actually might need to do. What might we need to do to help care for that person? And to help us remember, we do something with our hands, with our bodies. Usually, we take a stone if we're in the room and put it in a bowl of water If we're online, we might type into the chat something we're thinking about, those people who are hurting, or those people who had something happy happen. Today, we're actually going to light candles. Lindsay's going to light the first one. And for those who come up, I invite you to think about putting your candle closer to the center first. So the more candles come, the more they move toward the outside. You press it down into the sand enough to stay standing up. And Lindsay will be there to help if that will help you. If you're online, I invite you to type into the chat during the music. And the music is a piece by Olivia Rivers Sampson, a piece that she wrote. I invite you to let the music help you feel, too, help you think about who's hurting and who's happy. And I invite us all to think about each other, to hold each other as we have this ritual here in the room of putting candles and the ritual at home of typing into the chat. So if you come up to get a candle, go ahead and take a candle, light it from one of the candles lit, and then place it in. Lindsay has lit some candles to honor all those things that people are holding at home or being typed into the chat, as well as all those things that we didn't light a candle for, but that we're still holding, that we're still thinking about, those people who need care. I would name for us today, there's a candle here lit for the sorrows attached to the COVID pandemic, all the losses, all the deaths, all the changes in health, the changes in circumstances. And today, of course, in a powerful way, we remember the people in the Ukraine and all that means for the world. Close by, first, of course, in Europe, but then worldwide. So we hold our fear, our worry, our concern, our care for those people who are hurting too today. I would name for us that Tracy Pepper has been facing some medical diagnoses, and learning what that means, we hold Tracy Pepper in our hearts. And that Lisa Hike is recovering from shoulder surgery. We're thinking of you, Lisa. In the chat, I'll name in a general way the things that people name, the friends and loved ones who are suffering and the friends and loved ones who are finding something wonderful in their life. So often here people are worried about their children. Much heartache for the people in Ukraine being expressed in the chat. Gratitude for reconciliations. People feeling exhausted by a number of things. People feeling gratitude to all who help. I invite us to hold each other in silence for a moment. Andy, this is just a little bit hot in the room. I invite us to hold each other while we're holding what's in our own hearts too. If it helps to close your eyes, if it helps to remember your breathing, if it helps to say your own prayer that you pray, let's hold a silence together as we hold each other. May we remember that Good Samaritan that Karen told us about in the story. And may we too go forth and do the same. And I would invite Delaney up to share a reading written by Lindsay, Dunckel. Get you to the right spot, don't we?
We light candles of sorrow, and we rise like the flames. Knowing this community will help us shoulder the burdens spoken and unspoken. We light candles of worry, and we rise like the flames. Resolved to carry on in faith, to cling to hope. We light candles of doubt, and we rise like the flames, embracing mystery, wonder, and all we have yet to know. We light candles of joy, and we rise like the flames, burning with love, with passion, with renewed dedication. We light candles that celebrate our shared humanity, and we rise like the flames. We rise, we rise.
I have another story for you. This story was first written down about 1,000 years earlier than the parable of the Good Samaritan that we just heard, and about 3,700 miles to the east. It's found in the Atharva Veda, one of the 4 Vedic texts that are the foundation of the Hindu religion. And because Buddha was born a Hindu, Buddhism and Hinduism share a lot of the same stories, just like how Jesus was born Jewish, and so Judaism and Christianity share a lot of the same stories. Indra was an ancient Hindu god, and he was known by many names. He was often called the god of heaven and the king of the gods. He's usually shown riding a white elephant and carrying a thunderbolt. And some scholars think that Indra shares an ancient Indo-European origin with Thor, the Norse god that I'm sure some of you know from Marvel comic books and movies. The most important story about Indra is how he smashed a mountain to release the rivers of the world in order to save humanity. They needed the water that then came pouring down out of the mountain. Indra is associated with rain and thunder and lightning and rivers and war, and he had a lot of weapons, and he defeated many enemies while protecting humanity. One of his weapons was a vast net that stretched forever. Forever. It was infinite. And when he was done with it, he tossed it up into the sky above his home on Mount Meru in India. And today I want to tell you about Indra's net. Far, far away, in the home of the great god Indra, king of heaven, hangs a wondrous, vast net. It's a lot like a spider's web in intricacy and loveliness, if you've ever looked closely at a spider's web. It stretches out forever in all directions. And at each crossing point of the net, there hangs a single glittering jewel. And since the net itself is infinite in dimensions, the jewels are infinite in number. And those sparkling jewels hang there, suspended in and supported by the net, glittering like stars in the sky. It's dazzling to behold. I invite you to close your eyes now and imagine what this magnificent jeweled net looks like. Spread across the vast expanse of space. Now keep your eyes closed and in your imagination, move in close to one of those jewels. Move right up so you can see it. If you look closely, you'll see that the polished surfaces of the gem reflect all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Just the same way that 2 mirrors, when you place them opposite each other, reflect each other and reflect each other and reflect each other on and on and on. In the same way, each jewel contains all the other jewels and the whole of that infinite net. Now I invite you to open your eyes, and if you're in the sanctuary, look up. Above you hangs a portion of Indra's net. And for those on Zoom, you can see it on your screen. Know that you are a sparkling jewel in Indra's net, as is every person, everyone around you. Within you is reflected everything that exists and everything that has ever existed in the universe, and you yourself are in turn reflected in everything that exists. You are inside each human being, each animal, each tree and plant, each speck of dust, each idea or thought, each feeling to infinity. At every moment, the whole world is within you, and you are inside everything that exists. And although in your mind you see yourself as an independent being, and you feel separated from the rest of the world, in truth, You are part of the common existence of everything that has ever been. You could never exist by virtue of yourself, by yourself alone, because you exist by virtue of the glorious existence of everything around you. It is all connected. And so a change in one jewel or person makes a change, however slight, in every other. Whatever you do to one jewel affects the entire net as well as yourself. So you can't damage one strand of a spider web without injuring that whole web. And you can't damage one strand of the net without injury to others in it, whether that injury is known or unknown to them. And this can work for ill, but it can also work for good. Because just as destructive acts affect the entire net, so do loving, constructive, compassionate acts affect the entire net. A single helpful act, even a simple act of kindness, will send positive ripples across the infinite net, touching every jewel, every person in existence. And Ishel has a long stick. And if she stands up, I think she can reach the net and poke it and show us how if you move one part of the net, the whole thing wiggles. Thanks, Ishel. A single helpful act, even a simple act of kindness, will send positive ripples across the infinite net, touching every jewel, every person in existence. May we all find ways to send ripples of kindness through the infinite net.
Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, everybody in, everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in.
Oh, I love the wiggling net. Thanks for wiggling it, Ishel. It wiggled all the way over here when you did that. I could see those jewels moving. And just to put, if anyone's worried about all the flame in the middle, we have the fire extinguisher right here. In case that's your concern this morning. Our offering this morning, our offering all month long, has been for Care Crisis Nursery. And a group of us got to go visit about a year ago when we took the donation from this congregation. They do such good work. They help families who are really struggling. Sometimes there's a parent who's on probation or can't visit another safe space, and they provide the safe space for a family to visit. Or anytime there's something really challenging going on, they help. The Care Crisis Nursery. And so we've been collecting money all month long, and we'll do that today too, online as well as in the room. But we've also been collecting things that they need, like Kleenex and toilet paper and string cheese and batteries, things like that. So some of you have brought some, I know, and some people, there's some things under your chairs, and we invite you to maybe find a young person who's willing, if there are any young people willing, to put it in the box up here. Know that 25% of our offering today goes toward crisis care, and Allison will tell us a little bit more about how that happens. So I invite you during the music, when the music starts, Delaney's music, to bring up your things to the box. But first, here's how.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
I was going to thank Delaney for playing. She's out of sight for the moment. But as an adult trying to learn viola, I'm always impressed at Delaney's violin playing, fiddle playing. Thank you, Delaney. Let us dedicate this offering, and in fact, all we do, to the care of the most vulnerable among us, to our commitment to pay attention to who is hurting. Thank you for your part in that, in all the ways that you give to that effort. So look at that net. If you are in the room, if you saw the pictures earlier, what a fabulous net. So this is one of those things we think, oh, this would be a good idea, and then it requires someone to do it. So Shanti and Linda Siska and Gail and Lindsay, a whole bunch of people have collaborated on the thinking about it and the putting it up. Who are our net people? Would you identify yourself? There's Shanti. There's Gail. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who made the net. We have, for the young people in the room, we have a jewel for you. We'll have to get it down from the net, but we have a jewel for you. So I want to thank Lindsay for being our worship associate today and bringing both your heart and your insight always, always. To Beth Caro for being our tried and true and kind and hospitable host on the chat. To the amazing Siobhan and Andy and Bob Miller. Bob had all the equipment over next door at the Methodist Church yesterday. Brought it all back, reset it up, and Siobhan was helping reconfigure this morning. Thank you to Olivia for the video. She will watch her version with some nature images another time. Oh, here's some of the folks who helped with the net. Dawn and John, Shanti, Paul, Robin, Phil, Carol, and Linda. Some of that was just getting it up here. With deep, deep, deep thanks. Terry Boyles, thank you very much for making music with us today. What a delight. Really, thank you. And thanks for the picking at just the right times in between. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. To the Matthews family for the reading, Mags for reading, for everyone else coming up with. Ishella, thank you for helping haul things as well as wiggle in the net. Karen for beautiful and always meaningful, such touching, heart-touching storytelling. Thank you. We're going to miss you when you're not here. We're going to miss you when you're not here. And Delaney, thank you for both the reading and the music making, always. George and Corey behind the scenes. Corey's actually here. She's not always here today, but Corey helps find readers for the Sunday mornings. She helps call and invite readers. So thank you to everyone for helping this service be what it is and for helping
and
this
the land
community
acknowledgement
be what it is. If you're in the room, and if you're on screen too, I invite you to look around. Now that we spent some time together, look around and see who's here with you. You've had a shared experience now. You'll probably see some faces, or eyes at least, that you recognize, and some that you don't. I invite you to be ready to say hello, especially to faces you don't recognize after the service. If you're online, same thing with that screen, right? Who's there? Even seeing the names. Who do you know? Who's new? Who might you say hello to? And with that, I'll invite the closing words from Lindsay.
We are all connected, hoops within hoops, as Black Elk saw in the vision that we heard Mags read at the beginning of this hour together. One more quick story. This one, Reverend Gretchen Haley's adaptation of a Jewish tale. Once there was a father who loved playing with his little daughter, but he also loved reading the newspaper. And sometimes, when he was trying to read the newspaper, his daughter would interrupt him over and over and over again, because she wanted him to play with her, of course. Finally, one day, as he's trying to read, he comes across the travel section, and he has an idea, because there on the front page of the travel section is a whole map of the world. So he rips that page off, and he tears it into pieces. And he calls his daughter over to him, and he shows her all the little pieces. He says, honey, here's a game for you that I made. Look, it's a puzzle. Go find some tape, and then see if you can put these pieces back together the way they're supposed to go. And so she took the pieces, and she ran off to go try out this task. And not less than 5 minutes later, she came back with the page all taped together. And the father kind of shook his head. He was amazed. And then he thought, wait a minute, did she just throw it together haphazardly? But when he looked at it, no. She had put the map back together perfectly. And he looked at his daughter, and he really couldn't believe this. He thought, I think maybe my kid's a genius. How did you figure it out so quickly? He asked her. Well, she shrugged, and she said, it was easy, Daddy. On the other side of the paper, there was a picture of a person. And I know what a person looks like, so I just put the person together, and the whole world fell into place. So, as we leave this place, may you find times, may you find times to be like the Good Samaritan and put a person together so that the whole world can fall into place. And when you need it, may you be put back together so that the whole world can fall into place. Because we are all jewels in Indra's net. Not some of us, but all of us. Everybody. Everybody in.
Everybody in, everybody in, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle. Everybody in, everybody, everybody into the circle, circle. Everybody, 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 everybody in to the circle, circle.
Thank you. And as we leave this place, may we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in.